Finally, a film that puts the war in Star Wars. Hello Fanatics! This is the Film Fanatic Review bringing you Rogue One, a Star Wars story, with Felicity Jones and Diego Luna, directed by Gareth Edwards. First, I'll tell you my initial thoughts, and what the movie is about. Then I'll move on to some spoiler-free likes and dislikes. I'll finish up with my spoiler-heavy thoughts on this film, and I'll give you our final word. Overall, I was blown away with this film. It's the first adult film set in the Star Wars universe, giving us a gritty war film similar to Vietnam and World War II. Rogue One is essentially the opening crawl from A New Hope, wherein a group of rebels steal the Death Star plans. That's as simple as it gets. There was a lot that I liked about this film. The cast was great, from Jyn to Cassian, Chirrut to K2SO, who is definitely the best new Star Wars character, but more on them later. The film has the right amount of cameos and references to the episodic series, without feeling like it's forcing them down our throat, making this film watchable for even the non-fan. Darth Vader is used well and perfectly in the amount of time, so don't expect a Darth Vader story here. The CGI and practical effects used blend seamlessly, giving us current special effects with the vintage look of the original trilogy. Now, most prequels and sequels tend to destroy the image of an original film, like how the whiny Anakin could possibly become the greatest villain of all time, but Rogue One enhances the story of A New Hope. It gives so much more depth to the rebellion, and answers a lot of questions from the original trilogy. And the set pieces were absolutely stunning, giving us an even closer look at this diverse universe. This is also the first Star Wars film not composed by John Williams, and I've heard some mixed reviews about that. I actually loved the score on this film. I found that it was similar enough to the other films to make you aware of the connection, but also different enough to stand on its own and have its own tone. We need the variety. On top of all this, we probably have the best action sequence in any Star Wars film. The entire third act had me on the edge of my seat. As for what I disliked, that's a very hard list to come up with, unless I'm terribly nitpicky. The first two acts start off slow, but the payoff was definitely worthwhile. I also found that I wasn't a big fan of Forest Whitaker's role in this film. I've heard some people complain about the use of CGI and some underwritten characters, but I disagree. I'll support my stance in the spoiler section of this video. And that's where I'll end my spoiler-free thoughts on this film. If you want to hear my final word or rating of this film, pause and click the link in the description, because now it's time for spoilers. Alright, so I'm sure you're wondering where Rogue One ranks for me in terms of the rest of Star Wars, and I would say that it's probably the third best film so far. That, in order, is Empire Strikes Back, A New Hope, Rogue One, Force Awakens, Return of the Jedi, Revenge of the Sith, Attack of the Clones, and The Phantom Menace. Do you disagree? Comment below and I'll share why. First off, the lack of an opening crawl. I found that I was quite okay with this actually. I mean, it does give extra information to the casual fan, but I found that it helped further pull the anthology films away from the episodic, and that's what they need to do to start these off. Now, let's talk about the structure of this film. I've heard complaints about the first half of this film meandering along until the big climactic battle. Although the story seems to drag, it's a necessity. In episode 4, we meet the group of characters very quickly, and relatively in the same location. Whereas in this movie, they're traveling from planet to planet and picking up new characters along the way, and I feel like that worked for this type of film. Speaking of acts, the final battle was so good. With the space fight, ground assault, and comm tower attack, it felt like a better version of the Battle of Endor. With the beach scenes, it felt so similar to Saving Private Ryan or Apocalypse Now, and I loved that vibe. In the final act, they also did a great job to make this film look like it was shot at the same time as the original trilogy, giving us vintage-looking binocular views and even B-roll of pilots in episode 4. That's not where the cameos end, with a number of characters appearing throughout the film. There's Mon Mothma, Bail Organa, Dr. Evison, Ponda Baba, General Didada, C-3PO, R2-D2, and of course Darth Vader. But there's two others with the magic of CGI. Say what you will about the CGI Grand Moff Tarkin and Princess Leia in this film, but I absolutely love them. Could you tell that Peter Cushing was animated when he was acting alongside Ben Mendelsohn? Yeah, but that doesn't mean that he looked pretty damn cool in the scenes that he was in alone. I mean, this just goes to show how far animation has come. And if you suspend disbelief for space aliens and lightsabers, suspend it a little bit further and you'll see how cool these cameos really are. Side note, did anyone else get chills when they heard Peter Cushing say "you may fire when ready"? The CGI was not the only complaint I've heard, but also about the underwritten supporting characters. I couldn't disagree more. People are comparing this movie to the episodic series and a film set in trilogies. Rogue One is a standalone film. Look at episode 4. Do Han and Chewie have much of an arc? Not really. Han's development happens in Empire Strikes Back, and these characters had 3 films to develop themselves, whereas Rogue One is in comparison a short story, and I feel like with the amount of time that they had, they developed the characters as much as needed. Speaking of the characters, I loved most of the new ones we were introduced to. Jyn was a great female lead who wasn't overshadowed by the rest of the cast. Cassian was a good conflicted rebel who was a nice blend of Han Solo and Poe. Then we also had Chirrut, who was a phenomenal character, and his relationship with Baze reminded me of Han and Chewie. And then we had Bodhi, who was a Finn-type character that didn't really agree with his career choice. Meanwhile, Krennic was a great villain, showing us a very ambitious Imperial officer. Obviously, he's not even close to how good Darth Vader is, but in terms of the story of this film, he played a great antagonist. Side note, did anyone else get chills when they were watching Vader's lightsaber scene as he was boarding the cruiser? It was so good. I'd have to say that the best character in this film is probably K2SO, played by the brilliant Alan Tudyk. I found that his character was hysterically sassy and brought that kind of sass that Han has in the form of a droid. I absolutely loved it. And the only character that I had a problem with was Saw Gerrera. Nothing against Forrest Whitaker, I just didn't really like the character as a whole. I mean, yes, Saw Gerrera is a nod to the Clone Wars TV series, giving them another way to connect their universe. But at the same time, he seemed a bit laughable. I mean, his voice was a little too high-pitched, and the breathing apparatus seemed like it was a ripoff of Darth Vader, but also reminded me too much of Immortal Joe from Mad Max. Also, praise the filmmakers for not forcing a romance between Jyn and Cassian. Yes, there were some longing stares between them, and there was definitely some chemistry, but the fact that they had them on that beach and did not force a kiss made me so happy at the end. This film did not need romance, and they abided by that rule. Another big thing that I liked about this film was the fact that they killed off every new main character. Because this is an anthology film, it's its own contained story, and so we've never heard the names of these characters before, and so it was quite refreshing to go in and not know the fates of all the characters you're going to see, and it sets a precedent for all the future anthology films. Up until this point, each Star Wars film has only ever had 1 or 2 prominent deaths, so it was quite surprising to see everyone bite the bullet in this film. It shows the rebel cause and how dire and real it is, but also the gray area for the rebels' tactics and how they use them on the Empire, not only enhancing Episode 4, but justifying the title A New Hope. I will say that this film felt very real and relatable to where we are in society today. The episodic series shows a depiction of the rise and fall of fascism, but this film shows the very intense local effect of such a government in the midst of a civil war. I could honestly go on for hours about this film, so with the thoughts heard, here's my final word. Rogue One is an action-packed, gritty war film set in the Star Wars universe. It brings a new group of lovable heroes to a story that stands on its own, with very relatable themes and issues in society. The action is very well done, making this film watchable to anyone, Star Wars fan or not. I give Rogue One: A Star Wars Story a 9. This film is the real deal, and I can't wait to see what the next anthology film has in store. Thanks everybody for watching my review. Are you planning on watching Rogue One? Or if you've already seen it, do you have something you'd like to add? What did you think of the story? And where does this rank on your list of Star Wars films? Let me know in the comments below. This has been Film Fanatic Reviews. If you liked this video and you want to see more, hit that like button and subscribe to our channel. Check out our latest Fanatic 5 video, where we discuss the best presidents in biopics. Don't forget to follow us on our social media. We post new videos every Tuesday, Friday, and Sunday. Until next time, Fanatics, keep it real.